Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portress, and I'm joined by sweet Shanta Kovacs from the internet.
Dietrich Bader is my man.
And anime dad himself, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, comrade.
And we are back with our second Patreon vote this month. Each month, our supporters over at patreon.com/HMP get to vote on what we watch. And this week, it was an overwhelming victory for Superman Red Son, which is available to stream right now on HBO Max. But before we get started with that, we do want to say, because of that, thank you to all of those people that support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome folks get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And of course, they voted on this particular movie, as they do every single month. We've got a kind of it wasn't a late one, but it's one that I didn't share out with Sean here. So this week we do have Chad Hall joining the fold. Chad comes in at the ever-popular $5 a month, a.k.a. the backbone of support from Patreon. Chad, it's up to me to give you that nickname, but this week...
Why don't we give it a week so that I can come up with something great for Chad Hall?
I thought I had a good one.
I had Hall Pass ready to go.
Well, guess what, Bruce? That was what I said. The nickname I have for you is Hall Pass.
The fact that you both had it means it's not a good one.
All right. Actually, no, wait, hold on. I scrolled down. My notes actually said Hall Monitor because he needs to keep law and order around here. That was my initial.
See, I had Chad Kids in the Hall Pass Monitor, Esquire.
Ooh. I'm willing to let that one go.
Sorry, Chad. We'll have a real one next week. I just got blindsided by Adam.
That's okay, and it is my fault. I'll take full responsibility, Chad. You're gonna, hold on for one more day. You're gonna Wilson Phillips this bad boy, and we're gonna get you a good proper nickname come next week. All right. So if you too would like to get in on that naming ceremony.
Oh, hang on for one more day. I didn't get the Wilson Phillips reference.
What can I say, baby? I dropped some left and right. I do what I do. So if you want to do that, and of course you'd like to vote on pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, all that kind of good stuff, patreon.com/HMP. Just donate at whatever rate makes sense to you. No matter what that is, you get all of the stuff that's going down the pipe here. We just believe that whatever you want to do to help support us will get you more in exchange there. So thank you to all of those people. And since it's the top of the month next month, we're going to be naming off, of course, all of our big baller donators there and everything. And please join. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you. Patreon.com/HMP. Well, let's get into it, boys. Oh, my goodness. I didn't stop the Russian music in the background. But let's listen to the trailer for Superman Red Son.
Look! Up in the sky!
Get the best you've got.
Extraordinary reports coming out of the Soviet Union. Tales of a being with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men.
As I said, Mr. President, of course I understand your concern, but I assure you the Luthor Company has this under control.
I don't blame those among you that fear me, for you've been taught to fear all your lives.
This is a world where the strong rule. And you are the strongest of all of us.
It is only a matter of time, very little time, until all of Western Europe is absorbed, is taken by the Soviet Superman.
Look alive, Lanterns. We've got incoming.
I'm honored to have you here, Ambassador.
Call me Diana. And what shall I call you?
Superman. You think you're going to stop me, Batman?
What now?
Now I save the world.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Superman Red Son, our Patreon vote this month. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. What if baby Kal-El's rocket landed not in Kansas, but in the Soviet Union? This is the premise of this Elseworlds Tales from DC Comics. Again, IMDb such weak sauce. But let's see if we can get somebody to do a better job of telling us what this is all about.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got?
Superman Red Son is a DC miniseries written by Mark Miller that was published in 2003 under DC's Elseworlds imprint. This 3-issue prestige format series shows the reader what the world might be like had Kal-El's rocket ship landed in Ukraine rather than Kansas. If instead of fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, Superman stood as the champion of the common worker who fights a never-ending battle for Stalin, socialism, and the international expansion of the Warsaw Pact. Mark Miller reports that the idea for Red Son had been bouncing around in his head since a very young age. He said, Red Son is based on a thought that flitted through my head when I read Superman number 300 as a 6-year-old. It was an imaginary story where Superman's rocket landed in neutral waters between the USA and the USSR, and both sides were rushing to claim the baby. As a kid growing up in the shadow of the Cold War, the notion of what might have happened if the Soviets had reached him first just seemed fascinating to me. In 2011, the world of Red Son was given an official designation by DC as Earth 30, which was important because it facilitated events in Kentucky Fried Chicken Presents the Colonel Corps, which had the Colonel Sanders of Earth 30, Comrade Sanders, joining the colonels from other universes to take on Earth 3's evil Colonel Sanders. The Supergirl television series introduced a character, Red Daughter, who's an homage to Miller's Soviet Superman, and Red Son's Batman made an appearance in the 2018 Dark Knight's Metal comic event. The comic book story takes us far into the future, something the animated series leaves out, and that's okay because that gives you a reason to read the comic if you like the movie. The miniseries was both a commercial and critical success, earning an Eisner nomination for Best Limited Series, and led to a 2004 Elseworlds story called Superman True Brit, written by John Cleese. But I haven't read that one. I guess I'll wait for the movie. So speaking of movies, Adam, why don't you get us going on this one?
This movie's got so much stuff in it, so much, I couldn't even write it all down this week. That's how much information is in this bad boy.
That is amazing.
And if you listen to the Dinger Zone, you know how correct that is. But Sean, this was, we put up all of these votes and stuff, and this was one that, like, I came up with this list by myself. And surprisingly,
with your own money,
with my own money, I birthed this thing. And Red Son was in there. I had no idea that it was. You were a big fan of the book itself.
Oh, huge! And half of the reason why I was is that it just hit me at the right time. You know, I got it when it had first come out in trade, which is probably 2004. I'm guessing.
I'd say that sounds about right.
And it just knocked me on my butt, and it would be the first thing that whenever somebody, because, you know, back when I read comic books consistently, people would always ask me for a recommendation who, you know, were nerd adjacent. And I'd go, my first one would be Superman Red Son. And then I would explain to them just the brief premise to it. Like, what if Superman landed in Russia instead of in Kansas? And almost every single person would be like, oh yeah, do you have that? Can I borrow that from you? And so I bought multiple copies of that trade for several years. It's got a premise to it that just about anybody, even normies, are like, oh, that's a really neat idea. And, you know, now that we live in a world where, you know, we're dealing with Brightburn and things like that, it's not as different an idea, but in 2004, it sure was. But it was also something that was familiar enough to where you could know nothing about the deep history of Superman and just read that book, and you could come away with it like, wow, that's great. And so that is one of the reasons why I like it so much. I mean, you guys know that half of my enjoyment of comic books and nerdiness is just how it's become part of the public consciousness. But, you know, growing up, it was shameful that I had a weekly comic book habit. And
yeah,
but that started to change in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I would like to think that it's things like Superman Red Son that helped that along the way. At least for me, it did.
And I think there's a significant size of comic book readers who would probably say it's Mark Miller's best story that he's ever written.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's his best story.
And I mean, he's written a lot, but yeah, this one really, it's hard to be much of a detractor on it, because everything else he's written, it's got the places where you can point out the downside, even if it's been terribly successful or has a decent amount of popularity, there's always just that little bit of downside you can point to. I've not heard of much of that with Red Sun.
No, with the source material, the source material
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, the source material is fairly bulletproof. It's really well done. It's really well thought out. It's got, like we were talking about before the show started, it's got that wicked twister of an ending to it that this movie does not have. And I think that it hits you on the side of the head. When I first read it, it knocked me out, that the end of that. And it's fun, there's an element of fun to the book that isn't present in the movie, but we can get to that in a minute.
Man, I won't go into too much detail, but I'll say that the ending of Superman Red Sun really reminds me a lot of the ending to Nth Man, a great Cold War comic that came out probably about 4 years before this. It was not anywhere near as successful because you've never heard of Nth Man.
Look, Mark Miller sent DC a letter when he was 13 years old. He's got receipts, okay?
Yes. It's right next to that picture that Bob Kane drew in elementary school.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. That's funny. No, I dated it and everything, like a child would do.
Yes.
I put it in an envelope. I sent it to myself. It's like, that doesn't work. That's a bunch of crap. I didn't know, I remember seeing the Red Sun book on shelves because, first of all, those covers were really cool. They looked very, just the kind of Soviet sort of art style and the iconic art style of Superman, and to see the S replaced with the hammer and sickle and stuff was like, it was evocative. It drew your eye as you were going through, the comic racks and stuff. And just and like you said, the premise itself, Superman was a Soviet as opposed to an American. I was like, that's a really smart idea, but for whatever reason, I never picked up the book. I think you nailed it in the head with that was probably a premium format, and I was like, how much is this book? Woo! All right, let's go on to something else.
Yeah, it's definitely one that's worth trade waiting.
Yeah,
the propaganda posters are magnificent, though. They're so cool looking. Those covers that are the Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
So cool.
Just for the cost perspective, the trade that I got, it's only 3 issues. So a 3-issue trade was $18. So that's $6 an issue there, Adam.
Yeah, that's a little that gets tough. But then again, there's books today that are not even big books, but they're that's $3-4.
Yeah, this came out 18 years ago.
Yeah, even then, that's not too much.
But I didn't pick it up because there was no chromium foil cover, and I was like, nope, I'm out.
Is there a hologram?
How much money
can
I make on this on the secondary market? I thought.
Which one of my 3 children will be able to go to Brown on account of this book?
I want to put this next to my long box of Death of Superman.
Oh, man. We all had it. Now we've seen these DC animated movies for quite some time. Do you think that the level of animation has changed at all over these couple of years, or at least the ones that you might remember off the top of your head?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe this one's a little bit better, but I know as soon as I started watching it, it felt enough like all the other stuff, that what I call a house style of animation, that it kind of had me with just a little sinking feeling in my stomach at first. But thank goodness it's an interesting enough story that it overcame that. I don't know. What do you think, Sean? Do you think there's an improvement in the animation?
I don't. I think it feels exactly the same. It's that same level of animation where it's not terrible, but it's not something where your eyes aren't just amazed at the work. But like you say, the story itself is so interesting that it gets a pass. And again, like with Invincible, the voice cast in this is just terrific.
And this is exactly the kind of art style I was talking about when I said Invincible had me worried at first because of that quote house art style.
Yeah, so we didn't mention this has Jason Isaacs, Amy Acker, Dietrich Bader, and you got your boy Phil Lamar's in there as well. He's such a great animation voice that like you just reckon you're just like, that's my boy Phil Lamar. Yes, I love that guy.
Both Phils are in this, Phil Morris and Phil Lamar.
Oh yeah.
Well, what was so strange to me though was to hear Batman's voice coming out of Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
That was the weirdest move of all of this, but in an odd kind of way, the fact that we've got a guy, and first of all, is this not the first Batman and Luthor actor person that's done both of those things? That sounds
might be.
That's pretty wild, right?
It's either him or that guy from Welcome to Mooseport, that Hackman guy.
But you've got Affleck's done Superman and Batman, but no one has done Luthor and Batman. That's a weird, interesting combination, but he pulls it off well enough, I think.
Oh, I think Diedrich Bader is great as Luthor.
Yeah,
it's a really interesting take on that character because it's also there's no terrible vengeance within this Luthor. I mean, he does have vengeful tendencies, but there isn't that big like Superman the Superman envy.
It really cracked the Luthor code. I've got to give Miller credit for this, that he cracked the Luthor code, because what I've always found most interesting about Lex Luthor is if Superman had never entered his life, he probably would have been seen as a hero.
Yes.
Like it's the thing, you can't have two go-to guys on the same basketball team on the court at the same time, or there's like a lot of trouble breaking out. So when you took Superman and you took him from Team USA to Team USSR, then suddenly Luthor is in the right, because his whole raison d'etre is he just doesn't trust this superpowered being to really have humanity's best interests at heart. And that's where the whole conflict comes out. So they set up a scenario in which Luthor could be a hero. Like I think it showed some really good understanding of my interpretation of that character.
My biggest question for this movie, though, is now that Superman is in Russia, where is Otisville?
Otisville is somewhere in Kazakhstan. That's where Borat's from.
I do like that we still get a Miss Tessmacher reference in this show.
That's what made me think of it.
Which is so great. I like that we don't even, that it's not a character we ever see. It's just a nice, quick little throwaway line just for the nerds. I love it.
I like it that in every situation, Jimmy Olsen is a groupie, though, because he goes from Superman's groupie to Lex Luthor's groupie.
That's true.
Jimmy Olsen's a come-along boy. He's like, what are we doing today? All right, sounds great.
It also makes Lois look like she's just out to marry the most important guy in the room, too. I don't know if that was a good move.
So
that's kind of true.
Can we talk about something that I think that DC has completely missed when it comes to the Superman movies? There is no scarier villain that Superman has than Brainiac. Brainiac, when done correctly, is a very frightening bad guy. And they keep missing the mark because they keep wanting to put in Luthor or, that Solar Man from Superman 4, or, he's got to fight himself in a junkyard, when really Brainiac is, in my opinion, his second best villain. And, there's so many horror aspects to that character, and they kind of get it right in this, that, Brainiac, he's a long con guy, and it totally works in service to the story, but it also works as almost like an other type of thing. Like, Superman is the good kind of alien that visits our planet. Brainiac is not. And that totally works within the Superman mythos. Well, and I think that they're totally missing the mark. It was actually making me a little bit like bummed watching this, that they've never used Brainiac in a giant tentpole movie.
Well, I don't think we've had a Superman movie made by a comic book fan yet.
Zack
some
Snyder
of the
will
other characters
fight you.
Is he a comic book fan?
I'm sure that's what he'd tell you.
Wasn't. I always thought he kind of was like, no, I really wasn't until I worked on 300 or something like that.
I don't know.
What about Mark Singer?
Yeah, he actually was a fan of the movie more than the comic. So he tried. Yeah, maybe he probably is a comic book fan. Yeah, I give you that. But he also had his own thing he was doing. He was really writing
he's
a love
sex
letter.
pest. Yeah.
Well, he was also writing a love letter to the original Superman movie rather than any comic book material.
Right.
But I think a lot of people, being non-comic book fans, when they're making this property, maybe they were fans of the old George Reeve TV show and we're getting those first generation of movies, or then later they've been fans of the Christopher Reeve. But I don't know that we've had a whole lot of comic book fans trying to get into it. And if they did, they would probably do exactly what you're saying, Sean. I mean, Kevin Smith's attempt at a Superman movie was going to have Brainiac as the villain.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and do you remember
but that one guy wanted a spider instead.
Yeah. But at one point, I remember, yes, John something or other. Anyways.
Peters, I think.
John Peters, that's right. They had talks of, I remember rumors of Jim Carrey as Brainiac and stuff, and it was just like, It sounded like the worst idea ever, even then.
Nope.
And now I know it's totally just like recency bias, because of the role we recently saw him as a voice actor, but now I can't think of anybody but Zach Quinto as Brainiac because he was so good as Robot.
He is very good as Robot. I think you got to go another way with it, though. Like, I think that you basically have to bring in somebody that either one, we don't know him as an actor, somebody who's only done a few things here and there, or you go a full opposite way where Brainiac is like an Asian lady or a black guy.
I thought you were going to say
like
Gilbert Godfrey. So just
you kind of take like a Lindelof approach.
Yes.
Oh, Lindelof would probably make a darn good Superman movie.
Well, I think that he's busy trying to blow people's minds now, and I'm going to let him. But I want to watch the next thing he does. So
yeah, I want to see people tuning in for Superman and getting something like Watchmen, where at first you're like, well, this isn't what I expected. And then by the end, you're glad it's not what you expected.
Can you remember, Bruce, do you remember the episode where you realized that the Watchmen TV show was way, way better than you ever thought it was going to be?
I don't know if I remember the episode, but I remember the feeling.
Yeah. Because I remember that first episode you were still a little iffy on, but by the mid-season of that show, man, you were giddy.
Oh, yeah. I love that show. It's so
good. So good.
So to me, the toughest part, because like I knew of the story, but not the story itself. This was kind of a weird feeling starting this thing out because we're so used to seeing Superman in one way. We think that I'm like, I think I got an idea of where this story is going, but I didn't really. And part of it, because, all right, so Superman is obviously, a character that was created in America by Americans. He has a very close tie to America. And so to have Superman be a Russian and then just, it was so strange to me because it was just like, part of you think that like, oh, well, you had that Superman bias of like, well, he's a good character. He's the star of this thing. He's got to be, he's the one. Is he the one who's right in this? Is he wrong? And I like how it never tries to put you in one box or the other with this. And it makes for more complicated characters overall.
I love the way that it shows how complicated just life is and how complicated leadership is and how complicated power is, because we do see like Superman is not somebody that you're straight up rooting against, but he absolutely kind of starts to illustrate how being in a vacuum and trying too hard to do the right thing, you become a dictator just like the guy you replaced.
Exactly. I mean, so again, spoilers for this going from here on out. But Superman, like when he goes and kills Stalin, it's just like, oh, wow, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. And maybe he's going to take the Soviet Union in another direction. But he practically just, fills Stalin's shoes right after that. Like not at first, specifically. He kind of, but the power that he's got eventually kind of overtakes him. And he's just like, hey, we got to go to other places. We got to conquer these things to bring our version of justice and peace to everywhere else. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I keep thinking about with this show, and you just made me think of it, Adam, is that they did due diligence with a lot of these characters. You know, when you look at like the Lex Luthor character or the Superman character, you know, Jason Isaacs puts in one hell of a performance as Superman. And then you look at something like the way that they portray Stalin as a cartoon character, and he sounds, you know, almost like Boris from Boris and Natasha.
Yeah.
And then you know, when Kennedy shows up, you get the, you know,
it's like a Robert Smigel short on SNL when Kennedy shows up.
It really is, man. It's the yeah, we choose to go to the moon, you know, like that version of Kennedy.
Yeah.
And which is a little bit jarring because they really do a lot of work to make you feel for Superman when he, you know, I mean, he murders Stalin and takes his job, yet you still like him anyway because they did the work. And then to just completely flip it around to where historical figures are basically just jokes, like it's kind of off-putting to me.
And I know this probably isn't supposed to be part of the takeaway from this story, but one thing I took away is, like, even when Superman had kind of created a utopia in the Soviet Union, that even, you know, just like human nature, even if you're living in a utopia, what seems like a perfect society, there are people that are going to want to tear it down just because it wasn't their idea to do it. That's kind of what it boils down to some of them.
It's true.
I also love how, you know, Superman gets finally grants a meeting with Lois, and who for those of you that haven't seen the thing and are still listening, who's now married to Lex at this point. He gets this information and just goes, "Oh, you think what you're doing over there is great? I got this file here that's going to show you some stuff."
Yes.
And I'm surprised. I loved it because there's a point where his eyes actually kind of get wide. It was just like, what in the heck? He realizes what's been going on, flies out to where, you know, this encampment is and everything, and goes, "Hey, get out of the way, boys." Can't see through the lead because I guess they were just like, "Yeah, we gotta lead this joint up, otherwise Superman's gonna get word, and this house of cards is gonna crumble real fast."
I know. I mean, for me, like, the greatest scene in the movie though was when Superman was confronting Stalin there, and Stalin says the thing about leadership is sometimes you have to learn that sometimes the right people have to die so that the other people can have a better life. And he says, "You know what? You're absolutely right," and kills Stalin right there on the spot.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. That was a pretty bold move. And it's also like putting that philosophy into practice on the spot.
I always did like the crazy people in these shows and stuff that just look at these all-powerful beings and just goes like, "You know what? You're an idiot." I'm like, standing in the same room as somebody that could tear you in half like a sheet of paper and talking smack to him is, I don't know, it feels like a bad idea to me.
I'm also kind of surprised Stalin didn't try to already have like his own way of taking Superman down too, because he was notoriously paranoid about his support staff.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, because usually in an Elseworlds like this, you know, they got somebody in the basement who's usually Martian Manhunter, who they, you know, send after Superman.
And I was kind of waiting for the reveal of kryptonite, like zero mention, use, or introduction of kryptonite in this.
Yeah, really neat way to get rid of his power by having those red lights set up.
I thought that was like really the genius takeaway from this was that red light. I'm just like, this is super smart. And I love how there's just tons of them. They're giant. And, you know, it's just like, oh, well, guess what? You're down here with, and of course it's Batman, which is the best part too.
Yeah, I like it that we even see young Brusev Waynovsky or whatever his name was in the camp as he was coming in to free people from the lead-lined gulag, and he jumps up and the bats are behind him and you can see that hatred in his face.
And I love that he's got kind of a Russian hat / Naruto headband.
Yeah, that wasn't the best touch.
It's so I'm looking at it going just like, what was the design thought when this came in? Is it just like, are we just this dedicated to the Russian theme that you're like, yo, I know I got this cowl on and everything, but dig this. I'm going to put a fur-lined thing on the front and I'm going to look like an anime character. It's great.
I'm gonna have Nikolai Volkov's hat just with pointy ears on it.
And I can verify that he was referred to in the comic as Batmankoff, and that is comic book accurate from some of the sketches.
Speaking of design, I like that this takes place in a whole bunch of different time frames, all the way from the 40s to what was the last kind of date that we were in?
The Reagan becomes president.
Yeah, somewhere in the 80s or something like that.
Well, no, Luthor was president at the end.
Right. Yeah, well, what year is that?
So I think in 1980, Luthor was elected president.
There you go.
Been president a hot minute. What was I talking about? I forgot.
The different eras.
Oh yes, the design and stuff like that. Superman's costume is not something that they like point at a whole bunch, but changes over the years and is in variations on costumes that we've seen in Superman in the past, but with like that Soviet twist and everything. I really like those. All those costumes are really neat.
A little more militaristic by the end. I mean, you can see the changes in Superman's attitude. It's reflected in the clothes that he wears.
Yeah, he's got like, a neck thing now and pips and stuff everywhere, just going, look at me. But it was surprising to see them, because you just figure, they'll take the one. But as time goes and time progresses and stuff, Superman's costume has changed over the years. So why wouldn't Superman's costume change here? I thought that was a really smart move. Oh.
And I mean, it looks less and less like a superhero costume and just like an eccentric dictator's costume.
I love the new take for Green Lantern. I thought that was like when the Lantern stuff showed up, that was again something I was not expecting, having not really known anything about it. And so when the whole Green Lantern thing comes up, and they're like, "Oh, Kennedy's like, we've got this ship, and here's Abin Sur just kind of laying there. He's probably got another name. Is how these things work, I suppose. It's like, oh well, we don't know what to do with that ring. Just chops his finger off, takes it, and gives it to a guy named Hal Jordan. And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
And I do like it when they put their Green Lantern corps together. We do get the original three. Hal, John, and Guy are all there with some other folks.
I thought that was really neat. I loved how they. I think this is one of the better displays of the Green Lantern power in media that I've kind of seen. A lot of them come off stupid and silly. I love the idea of them, getting him in a safe upon a safe and shrinking that stuff down. I thought that was neat. Really clever.
I like the way that they have the alien body on the slab with the ring on his finger, and they're discussing the best way to proceed, and the guy just chops off his finger and hands the ring over to Hal.
He's a man of action. Here you go, Captain Jordan. Figure this out.
They're talking about all the okay, listen, there's a lot of things going on. We don't know what this is or how any of this. Oh, what the hell are you doing? Click.
And I kind of wondered, they didn't really go as far down this road as I thought they might, but I thought they were going to have like a superhero arms race, because you've got Superman and he's kind of got, at least earlier on, sort of a somewhat of an alliance with Wonder Woman, and then he's repurposed Brainiac, and then we see Bizarro introduced, and then the Green Lantern Corps. So I thought we were going to get more of a superhero arms race to, very obviously parallel the nuclear arms race, but they shied away from that a little bit. But I did like Bizarro. Did you guys like Buzzcut Bizarro?
I thought that was an interesting, whatever.
Yeah, because he had like the flat top haircut.
Oh, yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was again a neat, interesting idea, a different take and stuff. I think that his emblem on his chest is hilariously bad. I love that. It's just like, why would you scoop up at the top like that? It's just it looks bad. Why would you do that?
And I'll say also, this story had some appeal to people who don't have any like real life experience with the Cold War, because my 13-year-old son watched the movie, and then today I took him out so he could get his Red Sun Superman action figure. $24 for that one, but we had a coupon.
That doesn't sound like communism to me at all. But I thought that, and again, another one that I didn't realize was in this was the whole Wonder Woman thing. I thought the Wonder Woman take was quite interesting. Again, having that little twist on stuff that you actually know. And my favorite part is that she comes back as Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
My favorite part was probably when Superman went in for the kiss.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just figured that's what was about to go down here. She's like, no, I don't want to do anything.
On an island inhabited only by women. You figure it out.
And, Russians who are famous for their open-mindedness when it comes to sexuality.
Especially in the 40s.
Quite well.
Yes.
Or the 50s or something like that. Yeah, in the 50s, they were really like, oh, well, that's fine. Superman was quite progressive for the Soviet Union at the time.
Yes, I would
He's
say.
just like, you know what? I'm okay with it if everybody else is. What, everyone else is not okay with it?
One thing I never did figure out, though, is how did Lex Luthor get his hands on the bottled city of Stalingrad? Because that was a key part of his plan, and I don't know if he was working with Brainiac, because I just can't believe he could outsmart Brainiac, but he could probably trick him.
Well, I think the thing with Brainiac is that like you said, Sean said, the long haul game, and that's what I do like is that they present Brainiac as this kind of Rosie from the Jetsons kind of thing. He's running around the house answering phones. And,
he does look pretty funny there in one of his forms.
He's just like, oh, this is what. No, listen, and he's just dropping evil hints in his ear and stuff all the time. Just like, hey,
don't you imagine also that Brainiac gave it to him?
That's what I'm thinking, that Lex Luthor couldn't outsmart Brainiac, but he could tell him the truth, but do like the thing when a fairy's not allowed to lie and they tell you the truth, but you don't understand what they mean by the truth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he probably told him, yes, give me this. And that way you and I can work together to defeat Superman. And that's all true, but it also involved defeating Brainiac along the way. And by the way, how did he arrive at 6 mini black holes is what he needed? That thing doesn't even go fast. I would think 4 max.
Maybe it's too many.
Yeah,
it's like when a guy takes too much creatine and, he's just completely gigantic. And
all he's doing is ruin his fuel efficiency with that many black holes powering it.
That's it, I think you're right. 4 is really enough.
Or 4 full-sized is always better than 6 mini.
Well, I like big black holes, but that's just me. I'm not,
7-minute apps. 7-minute apps. 6 minutes. Who can get anything done in 6 minutes?
You ain't gonna
7-minute apps.
That's where it's at.
Again, I love the progression of Luthor, the fact that he has a full head of hair, and I'm like, really, this is what we're doing in this one? We're giving the guy, and then he loses his hair as things go along.
I don't even make a big deal out of it
either.
No,
it's
cool.
Not even pointing it out. And to me, that's where this show shines a whole bunch, is that it does a lot of these things, but doesn't smack you in the face with it. We live in a world of comic book movies and TV shows right now where there are so many times where they just want to smack you with the information that they've got. Just let us see it, man. Sometimes, I think but they short shrift a lot of audiences, especially in, formats like animation, where, let's be honest, the majority of people that are watching this are of younger ages and stuff. And that's what I always liked about, things like Batman the Animated Series. It's like it didn't have to preach down to you as, some stupid kid. They're like, here's a show. We think that you're smart enough to put all this stuff together yourself.
I just looked at a picture of Lex Luthor from Superman #4 in 1940, and he had that nice red hair in about the appropriate time.
Well, there you go.
So we gotta get to the elephant in the room here, which is that the source material ending is vastly different from the ending of this.
The source material ending, which I only read less than an hour ago, is
a pie fight. You wouldn't think it in a Superman comic, but nevertheless, a pie fight. Big one.
It happens after this movie ends. Like the comic book goes more or less up into the ending of this movie, and then it goes for about 3 more pages. So it wouldn't have been that hard to stick that on the end of this. It's almost like the movie is incomplete, and it wasn't like it had a long runtime. It's what, an hour and 26?
Yes, I mean, it was right there at actual feature length level and everything, which was kind of fun.
And I think you're 100% right, Sean, that ending really solidified this story as something that makes you kind of go say, wow. The only thing I can think is that in 2003, that ending might have seemed a little more novel than it does in 2021. Like maybe they thought it felt too similar to something else somewhere or lots of other things. Like the bootstrap paradox has been done quite a lot now. I don't know if that's their thought process.
It's true, but if you were going to do Superman Red Sun, I think you should do it all the way.
It's like you make Watchmen and you leave out the part where New York gets attacked.
Yes.
He just ends in Antarctica when Rorschach blows up, and that's the end of the movie.
I enjoyed this much more than I thought that I would. And I can't. Can you believe this thing is rated PG-13? I tell you, I guess it's just for the Lois Lane smoking a cigarette.
There's a couple of curses thrown in there for good measure.
I think I forgot about those. Where it's just like, oh, all right, well, we're having an adult DC moment, I suppose.
And I think there might be a little bit of violence, beyond PG violence.
Yeah.
He does crush Stalin's head. I mean,
and to be honest, when stuff is straight to the home market like this, I mean, I don't think anybody ever thought this would be playing in a theater. I don't quite even know why they give them theatrical ratings. Why not do like the TV-14 or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, because if memory serves, they probably have to submit some sort of thing to the MPAA, and I'm sure that's got to cost money. I don't know much about that particular aspect of it, but I know that's why a lot of things could just go, well, we're not going to do a rating because A, it's going to cost us money, B, it's not going to be a rating that we actually want. So we'll just throw it out there either unrated or
Warner Brothers has like one of those punch cards where you get like 5 movies rated and the 6th one's free, so they just use that on this one.
We rated 3 Hobbit movies. That means we get 1 more freebie. Come on. I got the card here ready to go. Ridiculous.
They pre-purchase a PG-13 they can use once a year.
Dude, there's something, man, if you watch a couple, like there's a movie called, I think it's, this movie's not yet rated or something like that.
Yeah, the documentary.
The Bruno Kirby documentary. I wouldn't be shocked if some of that was going on where they would just, well, you're a big leaguer. Let's just go ahead and give you a pass because, I guess it costs money and your money is good here. But let's get down to something before we get to our big review here and everything. We do have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this anime. I get cracked up because animation's a tough one, but we got to find out how it's related 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone. Good luck.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Hello, Mr. Stallone. There's a little-known song from your movie Rocky IV. That song is called "Double or Nothing." It's performed by Kenny Loggins and Gladys Knight, and you can tell it's the song that everyone involved with Rocky IV thought was going to be the runaway success that Eye of the Tiger was from Rocky III, and who can blame them? Eye of the Tiger was the #1 song on the U.S. music charts for 6 weeks in 1982. The band Survivor would break up in 1988, then reform in 1993, where there's still a band today. They have 8 albums and 9 compilation albums, believe it or not.
Wow.
All of Eye of the Tiger.
Their song Eye of the Tiger was such a runaway success that they're still touring, but when I looked up their tour dates on survivorband.com, there was nothing planned for 2021. And I bring all of this up to show you that if the song from Rocky IV, named Double or Nothing, would have hit like Eye of the Tiger, the names Kenny Loggins and Gladys Knight wouldn't be lost to history. Whenever you need to get pumped up for that big game or maybe a job interview, you play the song Double or Nothing real loudly and sing along with the lyrics because you know every word, and the people around you would flip out because they hadn't heard that song in years and join in. What an experience. But we all know this will never happen because no one remembers the song Double or Nothing. But that song, named Double or Nothing, was written by Paul Williams. Yes, that Paul Williams.
No way.
The guy who wrote Rainbow Connection and We've Only Just Begun and the theme to The Love Boat. And he starred Smokey and the Bandit, and he was in the movie The Doors. And he's also the voice of Brainiac in Superman Red Sun. Paul Williams' first credit is writing the theme song to the TV show Mannix in 1968. So for 53 years, Paul Williams has been in show business. He's been married 3 times, has 2 kids, and it's estimated that he has a net worth of $14 million. And that's not bad for a guy that's 5'1".
Wow.
He's 80 years old and he's still working. Good job by you, Paul Williams. An amazing career by a talented man. And there it is, Mr. Stallone. That's how you're connected to this movie. Legendary musician, Paul Williams. I hope to hear from you soon. This is the 357th time we've tried this bit. I'll do better next week. Thank you. Your new best friend, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Paul Williams looks like a little version, and this is weird, a little version of Luke Skywalker, just because he's a tiny little guy.
A little version of an already small guy.
Yeah,
I like that.
like he's tinier looking. It looks like he'd be a stunt double or something like that, or like, oh, we need to make this set look bigger, so we get the smaller one in here.
The love child of Luke Skywalker and Wicket.
Yeah, pretty much. But you got to say, according to that, quite the winner, that gentleman. All right, let's get down to it. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you would like to check out what that rating system consists of, why don't you head on over to reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. It's pinned right there to the top. And why don't you join that page as well? Bruce, where does Superman Red Sun fall in the Robin rating system for you?
I got to admit, I'm kind of rating this on a scale. Like, I'm comparing this to other DC animated, other direct-to-home market animated stuff. And it, when shown in that light, this is a pretty good movie. I think I've enjoyed it as much as any DC animated movie. But, like I said, that's a relative rating, but still, it is what it is. I'm going to give this a Tim Drake.
Okay. Tim Drake. Well, it was one of his favorite comic books to hand out to people at the grocery store line. Sean, what do you got?
What?
I don't know.
It was your Book of Mormon.
Have you heard about our sweet Lord, the Red Superman?
Have you heard the good news? Have you read the good news?
Have you heard of Comic Superman?
So here's my problem, right? Is that this, if I'm just looking at this by itself, it's pretty good. There's maybe one or two other DC Direct things that I like a little better, but just a little bit. But the source material is what gets me with this, because the source material is so perfect that I would give the source material a Dick Grayson all day, but I can't give it to this. For me, I can't separate the two, and so for me, it's a Damian Wayne. And if you look up the IMDb user reviews, which you should do that with almost every movie you watch, the overwhelming majority of people are people who have already read the source material, and they are very, very unpleased with this movie.
Wait a minute, you're trying to tell me?
And then there you get the random person. Superman's supposed to be American. And so, like, you get those.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point of the book. That's the point of this show. It's to show you the opposite of that. That's literally the point we're making. Good job, guy. For me, this is I'm kind of right there in the middle. I think I'm gonna go like low Tim Drake on this one. It's one that I kind of, again, because of the just lifelong ingrained Superman kind of iconography and everything that Superman stands for, it was really weird. I didn't know exactly where they were going to go with the story, and I didn't want, like, hey, by the way, communist Superman would have been the way that communism would have worked. That idea didn't make sense to me. But I also love the fact that, the Brainiac long con, and really the way for this character to get out of this particular situation was the classic comic book. And it's one of those things that when it happens, it's like, how didn't I see this coming from 1,000 miles away? It seems so bloody obvious. Yet I was like, oh, well, good on you, show, telling me, just making me have that empathy for this character and everything. And while I didn't quite understand him showing up in the at the White House there, which, by the way, is Luthor just giving away his presidency? Is that how the presidency works in this alternate future?
What I love about Luthor here, he had one job to do. Once he did that job, he gave away all the power. It showed that Luthor in a different situation is not a power-hungry megalomaniac. He literally is dedicated to what he thinks is a good cause.
It was very interesting. But overall, I really liked it. I was surprised. I would have liked to see that wild and crazy ending that goes, off into the future. Did we talk about that?
I don't think we did.
Let's talk about.
If we want to spoil the comic book for people who only expect to have the movie spoiled.
Little comic book spoiler, because I think it's so interesting, and I don't think it ruins everything. But Sean, give us a little bit of kind of what happens in the deleted scene, if you will, for this thing that isn't there.
Right.
What if it was post credits and none of us sat there and
Son
watched
of a
it?
gun. I'm telling you, there's part of me that thinks that's there now. Just because that's how our luck goes. We're going to get some angry email going, you bunch of dummies. You didn't stay to the end. They're like, no. This isn't a Marvel movie. It's a DC animated movie. Come on now.
Yeah. So can one of you look that up while I'm chatting away here to see if it's there or not? And then we've got some explaining to do. So at the end of the source material, at the end of the book, Luthor retires as president, and he becomes a truly great man. Not just a great man, like, historically great. Like, he is a brilliant man who also is looking out for humanity also. And he has great deeds. And because of these great deeds, his children are also great. And they make humanity leaps and bounds greater. And it jumps forward generation after generation after generation where, like the Luthor name is synonymous with greatness. And it keeps going and going and going. And it jumps 1,000 years into the future. And now it is known as the House of El for Luthor.
Not the EL, but the L.
But L. And a child is born, and that child's name is Kal-El, who the planet is dying and about to explode, and his dad shoots him off into space, and that is Superman Red Sun, and he lands in Russia, and it's just a continuous loop.
Yeah, shoots him out through space and time, so he goes back in time to 1938.
And it is such a wonderful ending that it's just so shocking. It just blew me away the first time that I read it. And again, keep in mind, this was in 2004. This is many, many years ago. It was so shocking and so wonderful that's the reason why the ending to this book is literally the reason why I would hand it out to people who wanted to read a cool comic book. This was the one. And so for the movie not to have that ending, it doesn't make it a terrible, terrible movie. It's just kind of a bummer that it's not there.
It's just going to go Jason Todd.
So did anybody look it up? Is that
it doesn't appear to be.
There's no mention of an after credit scene.
I tried to fast forward through, but my phone was going real slow. But it's no, there seems to be nothing at the end. So I think we're good. We dodged a bullet on that one, boys. Well, that will do it for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. Next week we're going to be talking about that in just a second here. But Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet in the meantime?
I'm still directing people towards my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. Lots and lots of anime reviews up there. Done a whole lot of work this week. I'm kind of a little worn out from it, but you can go check it out. Doing reviews of Attack on Titan. Checked out One Punch Man for the first time ever, which is really a cool little anime to talk about. And, got some more stuff coming up on the horizon.
So, Bruce, at some point or other, everybody always does it. Are you going to, because especially since you got the YouTube, are you going to commit to the One Punch Man workout routine? Because that's a popular video.
Where I haven't gotten that far, so no spoilers. No spoilers for me, but I don't want my hair to fall out.
I'll just say this. No, I don't think that'll happen, but it's an intense workout, but like it's a popular thing because he has like a particular regimen that he goes on, and if you yourself to be like, hey, for 30 days I'm going to do the One Punch Man, exercise routine for the time, I wouldn't do it, but I want you to do it for the YouTube.
No, certainly.
John, what else?
If you want to know about the pitfalls and the joys and triumphs of buying real estate in Atlanta, Georgia, I am your man, because that is all I have been doing for the past 2 weeks. Hey, what do we need an inspection for? Hey, let's just pay cash for this house and give them $60,000 over the asking price. That is literally what happens constantly. So for me to have locked in the house that I have locked in, I feel like I have gotten away with murder. But you can find me on Twitter at Sean Kovacs 4. And if you, and a lot of the time I reply, a lot of the time.
He's the Barbara Corcoran of podcasts, everybody. So
that is a reference I do not get.
she's one of them Shark Tank ladies who does a lot of real estate. So do check that out. And, of course, we've got another Marvel 30 Questions show coming up for you not too awful long. Loki 30 Questions will be just upon the horizons here very, very quickly. And those shows debut on a Wednesday, which is even better for you guys, so you can get those questions in even earlier, marvel30q@gmail.com. Just throwing that out there early, getting those...
In an ideal world, they could get 30 questions in between Wednesday and the weekend.
Yeah. Don't give me 30 questions. I've got enough good ones to just pick your top 2 or 3 good ones, send them in, and the good ones we'll take. Don't give me 30 questions. I'm not reading your 30 questions to get to our 30 questions. I will start ignoring. And I'm going to drop some film finds this week sometime. This week was a bit of a rush and wild stuff for me, but I've got new things coming out. And talk about Quiet Place 2, because that finally came out and brought a whole bunch of people back to the theater, I tell you what. So check out the film find. That is it, everybody. Next week, we're going to be talking about Jupiter's Legacy on Netflix. I can't nail that down. I've seen a lot of different opinions and stuff, so I can't wait to kind of delve into
also,
that.
Also, Mark Miller, 2 weeks in a row. It's Mark Miller celebration. 2 weeks.
I tell you what, that boy is cashing some checks right there. But I've never known him as a guy who wouldn't be like, yes, I will do this for money, please. So that'll do it. Join us next week when we're talking Jupiter's Legacy. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porteous. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.